in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us, everyone, for our top 5 ways to increase client satisfaction with ConstructionOnline's ClientLink. I'm Holly Gibson, Senior Product Specialist here at UDA Technologies.
Hi everyone, I'm Jordan Davis, another Senior Product Specialist here at UDA Technologies, and we are so excited to talk with you today about ClientLink and how you can engage with your clients through Construction Online.
That's right. We know that happy clients are going to lead to more referrals and business for you down the road. And just like so many of you really love working with Construction Online, what we found is that your clients also really love working with Construction Online as well through their ClientLink portals. It really does increase client satisfaction, and having something like this has really become now something that is expected within the construction industry. It used to be a little bit of a bonus or a nice thing if you happen to have it, but no big deal if not. But what builders are really learning is that having a portal for their clients to log in and be able to be kept up to date on project information is really a supplement to that wonderful personal relationship that you might develop with them. And so today we're really going to walk you through how to set that up, some of the benefits that you can expect yourself and your clients to see, and how you can really count your clients among the 750,000 of you who are using Construction Online. You'll find that your clients really just jump in and love using it as well.
That's right. We've made the client portal and really the ways that your clients can interact with Construction Online easy and straightforward. We'll be detailing how to set up the client portals today, and we'll also be showing off what it looks like and how you can interact from a client perspective. Now, speaking of interaction, Holly and I love running interactive webinars here at UDA Technologies, and we really can engage with you today during the webinar through the questions panel that you'll see. If you look to the GoToWebinar panel, there's a space titled Questions. If you'll open that panel up, you'll see there's a space where you can actually type and submit questions, comments, concerns, other things you might be interested for Holly and I to review. We would love to answer your questions as we move through today. Now, you might be wondering, well, what should I ask? What sort of questions make sense? Really, anything that strikes your mind as we work through the client portals today. If there's a specific scenario you'd like for us to take a look at, if there are other things that you're curious to learn more about as we work through the client portals today, we do have topics planned to talk about, but there's also a good bit of flexibility that we have when it comes to answering your questions as we move through today. So without further ado, Holly, let's jump right in, and we'll keep an eye out for your questions.
Yeah, we can't wait to see what you want to know from us today. And as we get started, I'll talk to you a little bit about what we have planned. So we want to look at this really from 2 perspectives. How is using ClientLink going to help you, the builder, and what benefits can you expect to see? And then how is this going to help your clients? What sort of results can you expect to get from them? And those, of course, go hand in hand together. Our goal here is to really help you increase your client satisfaction by using ClientLink in Construction Online. And so we will talk to you about how to set that up and look at how you can make it so that your clients are really kept up to date on what's going on. So they'll be able to do things like see the project schedule or upcoming milestones, due dates for things like their change orders or selection. So the goal here is to avoid delays. And of course, bring about some transparency, allow them to see a general outline of what they can expect in the building process, know what their responsibilities are, and how you can really communicate that in a way that is clear to them but feels like 100% great service. They'll be able to see things like the latest photographs on the job. So we want them to be able to see progress in real time. And so it's great for them to not have to ask for an update, but for you to be able to just provide that as part of your day-to-day management of the job. Of course, we will dive in a little bit more deeply into things like the selection and change order process, because those do require interaction and approval from clients. So we'll show you how to get that set up and what that's going to look like from your client's point of view, as well as the communication aspect. How can we send messages and receive messages and have that really well documented within that project space in ConstructionOnline. So we have a lot of great ground to cover. Now let's go ahead and get started. I'll jump into my account here. And I think, Jordan, it's great for us to start with the contractor or builder perspective. So we definitely want to dive into, what this looks like for the clients. But step one is going to be for our ConstructionOnline users to get the ClientLink set up and share the projects that way, and think about, what types of information they want to share and what goals they have, for sharing that information.
Yeah, it's a really good place to start. This is actually where a lot of the training sessions that I run will really start when it comes to engaging with clients. We've talked about a lot of the options that you can share with clients, but oftentimes, Holly, there's some decisions to be made about what exactly you want your clients to be able to see or not see. This is not so much a concern, but it is a consideration that a lot of companies will have and a lot of our clients will have. There is such a thing as too much transparency in some cases with some client relationships. So a lot of the things that we're talking about today are going to be focused on sharing information with clients and really opening client engagement. However, as we're looking at the settings today, do note that we've made our platform very, very customizable. There's a lot of different settings and a lot of control given to you, the actual end user, to control what your clients have access to. So it's pretty flexible, and it can really meet a lot of different requirements and scenarios based on what you find to be most effective with the types of clients that you work with.
And that's such a great point, Jordan. When I think of the clients that I work with, what I hear from you is that some of you have local clients that you have a really close relationship with and that you expect to see regularly. That's just part of it. They'll, sometimes come to the job site, and that's okay. We want we don't want that to be an everyday thing, unless that's really, how everyone wants to work. But, sometimes it is a lot more in person. Sometimes I worked with someone yesterday who was preparing, I think, to do some projects in Florida, where the client was based out of Minnesota. So sometimes we're building things like investment properties or, maybe second or vacation homes, or, just working with an investor or client who is doing maybe developments in different places around the country. And so the idea that the client even really could see things in person if they wanted to is not always there. So, sometimes in those situations, you do want to think about, the types of clients you generally work with and what's going to be most helpful for them to see.
Right, and what's going to benefit your relationship with that client moving forward. Again, there are a lot of different configuration options, so you can really tailor and make sure that the information in your client portals really fits the type of relationship you're trying to build with your clients.
Yeah, that's right. So let's take a look at a couple of things that we have in this project. So I've just jumped into my 71st Street project here, and we can go in and take a look at some of the components that are beginning to make this project up as I'm building it. And I always like to approach or think about things that we might be adding on, like ClientLink, by thinking, what's really my goals for my customers is I want for my contractors and builders that I'm working with to be able to see better results on things like the project timeline, coming in on schedule, coming in under budget, being able to track that information well and really protect your profitability and allow you to be able to do so many great things. So if we think about ClientLink from that perspective, some of those visibility options are going to be really key. Now, in this case, I have started putting a project together. It looks like my estimate isn't quite finished yet, so we're still in the process of building that. One of the things you'll notice is that, of course, the team area is where we're going to assign our client. And in this case, I've already assigned my customer, Polly, to this project. One really helpful sort of tip or trick in the setup process is that you can set your project as pending. And when you do that, it means that it's not going to send out those invitations, not going to notify everybody on the team. So it really gives you a place to come in and start setting things up without worrying that your client is going to go ahead and be invited to something where, it says their budget is $20,000 for $1 million home. That's not going to happen. You can go ahead and set that to pending before you add your client in if you'd like. And then whenever you're ready, you can just turn the project live. In this case, I'm going to leave us live so that we'll be able to take a look at the portal with you all in just a moment here. So that's something that you can do when you're thinking about setting up. The other thing is, of course, we have a project here where we're using our main kind of general standard folder structure for our company. So we've got, different folders and things that we have set up for our team. Now you'll notice that I've chosen to share one of these with my client portal. So this is where when you start to organize things, you might choose which documents to share, which photographs you want to share. And so that's something that you'll be able to do as part of that setup process. We also have some other things added to this project. So we have something on our to-do list. We have some punch list and inspection templates that we're going to use for quality control throughout the project. We have an estimate that we're working on building, and we're building out a selection sheet for our clients as well so that they can come in and see what choices we have for them and be able to make that information. So we've already started building some things into this project. Jordan, let's start talking about what we might want to share. In this case, you really do have some options for sharing just about all of this with clients if you want to, but normally you're going to want to choose. So let's take a look at how we would set some of that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the ultimate starting place for the client portals and really configuring what you would like your ClientLink users to see is going to be found inside of your company settings menu that's at the top right. We're going to now move into the ClientLink and TeamLink settings menu. Now for today, we're going to be configuring what features are available inside of the ClientLink portal, period. Now, this is something that I like to tell people to think, pretty seriously about. It's kind of our discussion has led into to this point, which is, well, what sort of information do we want to give our clients access to inside of the client portals? Each one of these options here will actually turn on or off the different features inside of the client portal so that it's actually even visible. If we turn a feature on, then clients will be able to see that they have a calendar they can take a look at. If we turn the schedule on, for instance, they'll actually see that they have access to the schedule. Now, if we don't want to show some information like the schedule or like daily logs, perhaps we don't want everything to be shared with them in that regard, we can actually just turn the entire feature off, and they won't even know that it exists. I feel like there's almost polar opposites in some cases. For instance, when it comes to the schedule, where some clients I work with absolutely want the clients to be able to see the schedule. This makes a lot of sense, I think, for maybe institutional investors, larger property development companies who are a little more in the know or have an understanding of an actual construction schedule, and that a delay in some cases doesn't always mean that the entire project's delayed. It's a little more difficult when you're working with a client in the residential space or the residential world who doesn't really have a good grasp on the process and unique challenges and things that can be easily overcome, who might overreact at the first sign of some type of delay, right? But I think there's a couple of nice options to handle that. The first one could be you just turn the schedule off. That's simple enough. But we've put in a nice intermediary option, which I think is a good blend and something we'll be touching on today, which is disabling the Gantt chart, but still showing major project milestones to the client. This gives you, as the builder, a lot of control over the schedule's visibility, at least in terms of major, checkpoints throughout the schedule, which could be shifted or moved and set up in a way that keeps the client in the loop and is understanding how the project is progressing and where you stand, without, of course, oversharing the entire schedule with the client. Now, again, some people are just going to turn the schedule on and then it'll be fine. Others, though, this is the right approach, and it works out really nicely. I'm excited to show off what this looks like in the portal.
Yeah, there really are so many different combinations that you could choose, and so a lot of that is definitely going to vary from company to company and how you like to do business. A couple of recommendations that I would normally make is thinking about some of those challenges. One thing that I hear from my clients sometimes is that their clients and homeowners or investors or whoever they're working with on the project are really wonderful people. They're so excited. Maybe it's their dream home. Maybe it's an investment they've always wanted. So they're very excited about the project, but often really lack the construction knowledge to sometimes interpret what they're seeing. And very often, especially, lack the knowledge or even thinking about how the decisions that they make, or in many cases, decisions that they're not making, how is that impacting the project? One of the biggest challenges on the residential side that I hear about, are just clients who can't make up their mind or are having trouble on a selection or can't decide, on an upgrade or change order option, and don't really realize that delay actually has impacts that ripple throughout the rest of the project, impacts things like cost. And so, it's great to be able to share that. We put all of that information on a calendar for them. So when you turn these on, for example, something like change orders, then when you give that change order a due date, it's going to show on the calendar side by side with whatever else you've chosen to share, so that they'll be able to really see not only what they're supposed to do, their responsibilities, what needs their approval or attention, but how that lies side by side with the things that you and your team are really trying to accomplish for them. If we look through the features here really quick, you'll notice that really all of ConstructionOnline's tool set is available for sharing. One thing that we've done recently that I'm very excited about is add in a brand new option for sharing the daily logs with clients. That's been something requested from some of you out there who want to share that information, have them see the daily log entries in real time. So this will allow you to do that. When you turn this option on, any of those project logs that are entered in, they'll be able to see those automatically. Now, if you still want a little more control over that, turn the option off and do it as a report. And that's usually my advice for any of these features that you're not sure you want to give live access to, is then in that case, maybe just take advantage of some of the great reporting options that are available for every feature as well, to give yourself a little more control. So you always can really set this up to work best for you and your clients. In this case, I think we want to share a good bit with our client, Polly, so that everyone can see what that's going to look like from the client side. I'm going to leave off announcements. I plan to use announcements primarily as a subcontractor communication tool. So in this case, I'm going to leave that off. Messages, though, we definitely want the client to be able to send and receive messages with us. I'm also wanting them to see files and pictures. That's such an easy way for them to digest what's happening on the job site. We're definitely going to have some change orders and selections, and so I want those to be available both in the portal, and I want them to receive email notifications about those items. So we want to give them that nudge that they need to log in and make an approval. In this case here, I'm going to go ahead and show my client the full project calendar so that they're going to see everything along with any delays that are logged. And we'll go with, Jordan, your recommended option here to show the schedule, hiding the majority of the Gantt chart and really just showing those project milestones so that they'll have some information but maybe not see everything that's scheduled day to day. We're also choosing here to share punch list, and it's important to note that in the punch list sharing option, along with things like to-dos and RFIs, they're going to be able to see the ones that you assign to them. So it turns that feature on, but it doesn't automatically give them access to every punch list you've created for the project. It just means that you can assign things to them or give them access to be able to maybe create new punch list items for you and your team without having access to everything. So we'll show you how to set that up. And I also want them to have access to the plan room along with their RFIs and in submittals. So we want to get some approvals there as well. Checklist, we can turn that on or off. I have noticed that since we released the checklist feature, a lot of people are beginning to use this as sort of a collaborative checklist with their clients for things like getting started or wrapping up a project. And so it is a nice option for that if you want to assign some things to them.
So before we dive too far into the things that we've set up, this question comes up all the time, and it really comes up in context of actually turning on or off the different features in the portal. The question would be, well, how, is there a way that I can see or preview what my clients will see when they log in? And the answer to that is yes. It's actually very straightforward. And in a lot of cases, clients I work with will use this option to preview the client portals to really fine-tune and adjust the permissions and settings they want to turn on in ClientLink settings and also throughout their own project. This is a really quick way. You can just head over to the project team and open the menu for the client in question, whoever it might be. You can do that either by clicking on the action menu there or by right-clicking and picking the option to preview the portals. This, again, does give you a quick check into pretty much a one-to-one view. This is exactly what your clients will see when they log into their portal. It is pretty much a one-to-one reproduction. There's no difference between this and what they would actually see in their live portal. So if you're curious or you're maybe gun shy, maybe you've worked with other platforms in the past that have overshared information and it wasn't very clear about what was being shared, well, if you need a little bit of reassurance or you want to see exactly what they can see, you can definitely do that.
Yep. And it's a great way to adjust and think, yeah, have I chosen the right settings? You don't really have to wonder about it. You can just make those setting adjustments, jump in and take a look. What we see is that immediately I can see that the client does have access to those change orders and selections as I've set up. I see all the features as I have chosen them here at the top. And it looks like, in this case, on the calendar view here, I do see this milestone for our foundation inspection, but I do not see the rest of the schedule because we chose to hide that entire Gantt chart. Now, maybe we come in and take a look and decide, I think that I would really like for my clients to be able to see a little bit more. You would really just come back to your settings, make that adjustment, and it's instantaneous. So, this is adjusting again in real time. So if you want to hide certain things and later decide you want to share them or vice versa, you can always fine tune the process that you're using with your clients here. So in this case, I'll just uncheck that, save it, and when I come back to my client portal, we'll see that schedule load right in, and now we've just shared a little bit more information with them about what's going on.
Yeah, you're not stuck if you set your settings up one way and decide later you'd like to expand or in some cases remove access. That's also possible as well. Now, in terms of really showing off what ClientLink can do, I think at this point we need to pivot just a little bit and start working through how you can share certain items with clients. We touched on files. I think we did a deep dive on files in our last webinar that really detailed out how to share information with clients from the file section. So if you're curious about that, you should go take a look at our previous video where we dived in pretty deeply. Of course, when it comes to sharing the schedule, all you really have to do is build the schedule. The same is true for client selections and change orders. I think those are fairly straightforward, wouldn't you say, Holly? I think, unless there's really any questions that come our way about building some of those items there, you just use the platform as you normally would, and clients can begin to engage with them. And I think that's really the question, is not so much these days on, well, how do we put together a change order or a client selection? The real question is, well, how do our clients approve those on time? How do we keep them up to date?
Yeah, I think usually the two biggest questions really that I get are from people that are already wanting to use or set this up is, kind of the how to make it happen. And the good news there is that ConstructionOnline has made it so easy. There's really, we don't want you to have to go through a ton of extra work. We want you to come in, be able to really build out your project. You've already chosen what's going to be shared with your client, so you just turn that portal on and you know that it's good to go for them. The other question, that I will sometimes encounter is a little bit different context. It's more along the lines of, well, we've gotten by so far without a client portal, or is this really something we need to do, or how can we encourage our clients to use it? And to be sure, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but as we go through what this looks like from the client perspective, to me, it really comes back to some of those benefits that we discussed in the beginning. The real goal here is to do a few things. We want to provide outstanding service, and we know that this has become so common that really you want to have something like this in your arsenal for your clients to use. This is standard really in the industry now. It's something that you want to have. You want to avoid delays where possible and give your clients some visibility into what's going on the job site. We want to be able to share progress with them, feed into that excitement, We also want to make sure that we're getting paid for things like change orders or selection overages, or that there are no surprises about where we go over budget. And so using the change orders and selections helps with that. So very often it's really more of a discussion about benefits and why, and how this really helps clients and what we're hearing from our clients who are using, ClientLink on a regular basis. Now, as we look at some of the additional setup, we've looked at our portal, we have our schedule all set up. One of the things to note when we look at scheduling, so we'll jump back over there just for a moment, is if you're curious about the milestone option, but maybe haven't been using milestones in your schedule, we did want to just show you a quick little tip as to, how to make that work. If you're using a UDA template, many of those do have milestones built in. But if we take a look at our schedule, anything represented by those diamonds there is a milestone. And to add one, you can really come in and either, insert a task. So we could just come in and make a new task here. And when you're working with that task, you'll notice an option to set it as a milestone. It's just a little checkbox. And what this does is just marks that as one of those milestones. Milestones always have a single day duration, so it's not intended to be used for, work being completed that would usually take multiple days, but it's really to designate major milestones. So very often I see milestones used for things like inspections throughout the project, or kind of the wrapping up of one phase of work transitioning into another. And sometimes I even see them put on the schedule as payment milestones for the client as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And another common use of milestones, really, that we recommend is putting in major dates where, it would be really helpful to have, or almost required in some cases, to have the selections for the projects submitted. There's such a thing as order and delivery timeframes that might have to be met, and making sure that your clients are getting the selection choices in as soon as possible really can have a disproportionate impact on the duration of the project, making sure that you hit your milestones for completing the project, and also, building in the client selections into the schedule itself signals to the client that this is a real, true, active part of the process of building and completing your project. So now I've worked with clients who will split this into phases. I've also worked with clients of ours, I guess our users, who will not split the selections into phases, and they'll just put in final selections due. And they'll just put this into the schedule and really set it up so that this is something that there's not really any negotiation on. They just really communicate to the clients and say, this is really important. If we don't have the selections by this date, it could have a disproportionately negative impact on the schedule moving forward.
Now, this is a good time also, just, as far as tips or things that I see my most successful clients doing. When it comes to selections, I usually see people take two different approaches. One would be that selections are due at the very beginning of the project. That is something done really as part of the planning process. They make those selections, and those are already made about the same time, that the contract is signed. So I do see some builders really using that selection as something that must be done first. We're not starting construction until all the selections are done. And sometimes this varies a little bit too, depending on the type of work that you're doing. That'll look different for a custom home builder versus a production or neighborhood development contractor, and it looks a little bit different on commercial projects as well. The other approach that I see people take is, kind of very similar to what Jordan just walked through, where we do go ahead and start construction, but we do set some firm deadlines for selections, which, as we can see here, can be tied into those milestones, which makes it really dynamic if the schedule begins to shift.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Something that I'm showing off here is whenever you're actually working in the client selections area, you could set a manual due date. That's perfectly simple and straightforward enough. You just pick the date. or you can actually tie the selection due dates to different milestones in the schedule itself. Now, what's really great about this, Holly, you mentioned, is that this makes the due date dynamic. You can see that the date here is grayed out, but let's say that we are generous with our time and we do end up maybe giving the client a little bit more time. Of course, this absolutely would happen. You would definitely give your client a little more time to get their selections in if it was reasonable, right? And sometimes unreasonable, depending on the types of clients you work with. You can do that. So instead of having to go through and change the due dates for every single selection throughout the entire project, if you put in a bit of the groundwork ahead of time, you can actually update all of the due dates for all of your selections in one or maybe two steps. You would just head into the schedule and shift the selection milestones that you'd built into the schedule. And what we would see when we moved back over into our actual selections proper, we would actually see that the due dates had updated to the new milestone choice. So really, really convenient. And you can also add this into things like your project templates, which can really save you a lot of time when you're first setting up a new project.
Exactly. So when you find that process that works for you, you want to save that as a template so that you can use it over and over again. Now, this is a great way to handle selections. Of course, change orders are typically coming up, more one at a time, or sometimes they'll come up in waves, but normally we're not predefining all of those change orders in the very beginning of a project. And so as those come up, you would want to give them an approval due date. It's not required, but again, when we think about making sure that we're not only getting paid, but also that the client does see their part to play and what we need from them, having that due date there is a great way for them to get that visibility and make sure that it shows up on their calendar. And it also helps to communicate that, the reason those due dates exist is because there is not only could there be delays, but there could be additional cost incurred by not having those decisions made on time. Now, for change orders, the thing that you want to think about, or kind of my tip or trick for this section, would be that when we're creating a new change order, we actually can do that in draft mode. So if you need to start up a change order, and I see this frequently where requests are coming in from the field. So common scenario, the client or investor is on the job site. You are not on the job site. Maybe you're on another one, but the client comes out, people are working. Maybe they talk with the supervisor on site and say, hey, I really want this change. Well, if it's not something that we can just quote on the spot and know for sure that we've got our margins, and a lot of companies I work with do empower their site supervision up to a certain type of change request to maybe go ahead and get that on the spot approval. So that is available within the mobile app. You can just create the change order. They can sign it right there on your phone, and you've got it. But in those cases where the change order really does need you to come back and put together a little bit more of an estimate for it, you can go ahead and have your team create those as a draft. And what that's going to do is it just means that this change order is not going to be visible yet to your clients. So it's kind of like that setup mode. We're setting up the change order. We're really making sure that we get it right. And then when we're ready to have the client approve, we would just come in and adjust the status here. That way the clients are only seeing the ones that are ready for them. So one more way of really controlling what your clients are seeing. Now, before we log in as our client, I think there's one more thing that would be really helpful to touch on, and that would be just looking at the project tracking options. In this case, I have chosen to share my to-do list with the client, but when we log in, you'll notice that the client won't have any to-dos in their list because this one is not assigned to them. So again, that's only going to apply to things that are assigned to them. If we take a look at our punch list, maybe these inspections throughout the project are not things that the client really needs to work with and see, but maybe we do want a final punch list that the client can come in and do their own walkthrough and add to. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and edit this punch list, add our client in as a punch list editor, which is going to give them permission to create items on the punch list here for us. We'll save that so they'll have access just to that one, but not to all.
Yeah, they won't even know that the other punch lists exist, actually, and we'll see that in a moment.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I know we touched on this just for a moment earlier, but if we kind of come back to some of the most common things that we see people do in addition to schedules, change orders, and selections, it definitely would be files within the client portal. That also is really easy. We did talk about it in depth on our workshop last week, but I did just want to show everyone how it works. So we can see here that this progress photo album is shared with ClientLink. And what that means is that anything I add to this album is automatically going to be shared out with my clients. And you set that up actually under the options menu and just turn on that active sharing with ClientLink. You'll notice that I haven't done that for all of my folders, so the client won't be seeing everything else, really just what I've chosen to make available to them. So Jordan, I don't know about you, but if we look at common questions, one of the things that I do get questions about a lot is what the experience looks like from the client perspective, not only within the portal, but from the very beginning, kind of with that communication. You can preview the portals, but there's no way for you to log into your client's email and see exactly what it looks like for them. So I think that would be a good place for us to transition into looking at that client perspective right now. So I do have my example client, Polly. I have her email pulled up here just so we can take a look at what that looks like. So let's say that we have set up our project. We've made sure that the settings that we've chosen for our portal look good. We're ready to get started. Our project is live. So Polly is now going to, receive an invitation. And here's what that looks like. So it will be coming and say, Holly Gibson has created a client login for you. And it's just going to let them know the name of their project, how and where they can log in, and a link to go ahead and view the project right from the email. They'll also have a link within that invitation to get the app or download the mobile app. And if you have a custom mobile app for your company, that's where they're going to be directed. So of course, to jump in, they would just click, view project, and it's going to take them to your public profile where they'll be able to log in. Now, in this case, because I do a lot of work for my example client, Polly here, and so because she already has a login, it really is just going to direct her here to go ahead and log in. For many of you, if you're doing projects, for the very first time with a client, and it may be that in most cases, every client you have is unique. When you add them and that invitation goes out, if they're brand new, then it will go ahead and provide their password for them within that email invite. So there are no question marks for them. It's really easy and gives them all the information they need to get logged in successfully. And so we'll just get logged in. And now take a look at the results of our project setup from our client perspective here.
Yeah, so something that I like to point out is, especially when you're first working with a client and they might not be as technically, let's say, adept, or maybe they're not as familiar with technology as others might be. I almost always recommend just before that you go live with the project that you either send a quick email from your account or something like that to let your client know that you're working with ConstructionOnline, which is really going to show them their projects online on the web. This is a pretty key phrase, I think, to letting them know, really just priming them ahead of time that they're going to receive a message to let them log into their platform in ConstructionOnline. Really goes a long way, and it could be a simple two sentence message that you send out. You could also send a welcome message, which we have actually done through ConstructionOnline as well, which is actually the first item that we can see here inside of Polly's project portal, which is the new project message. Now, the message that we've put together does also send out in an email. Holly, I think you actually sent this message before you added Polly to the project, which one is possible and two makes a lot of sense. If you wanted to welcome them to the project before they even log in for the first time, it's fairly straightforward to do. Writing a new message in Construction Online is like writing an email anyways. This is something that we encourage to go ahead and really get in front of your clients' questions about the portal and what they have access to and what they can do. We also have a pretty handy ClientLink Getting Started guide that really is designed to show off to clients, to give them a quick snapshot in what's possible inside the platform. We'd be happy to share this document out with everyone in attendance today as well. If you're interested, let us know.
Yeah, in terms of resources, and this is really a good time to talk about what some of these resources look like. So this Getting Started guide will walk your clients through, what to expect, what is ClientLink, what can they expect to see, and then really some quick tips on how to log in. So it really is great to include with a welcome packet or welcome message to them. A couple of other things that we at UDA have available as resources for you would be a video. So what I see is that very often, again, my most successful builders and contractors that I'm working with not only use the portal as a tool for client satisfaction, but use ClientLink really as a selling tool, a value add way of helping potential clients see the benefit of doing business with them as a builder. So we actually have a video that we will customize for you with your company's branding that you can post to your website to show what that looks like, kind of highlight for your clients the benefits of doing business with a builder or contractor who is already, kind of using those modern tools to provide outstanding customer service. You can provide them with the ClientLink Getting Started guide here as well. This can also be branded with your company's logo. And then lastly, one thing that I do see a lot of people do as well is build terminology about using ClientLink for online approvals into their contracts with the customers. So very often you want to start talking about this in the sales process and really present it as a benefit, not a burden or a way of getting rid of them, but it's how you're going to provide outstanding service and updates to your customers. Build it into the contract so that it's clear from the beginning that you are expecting those online approvals, and that's the way we handle change orders and selections for our projects. And then also providing them with tools like this to really help them get started. It looks like several of you have requested to receive a copy of this, so we will make sure to get that out to you after the webinar today, along with the video from today's workshop. Let's go ahead and jump back into the portal. So let's take a look at what, maybe Polly logs in and sees this welcome message. I imagine that she probably would say thanks. So if she wants to reply to the message, she can do that from right here. So all she has to do is just add a reply. Thanks so much. And hit post, and that's going to, whenever your client sends a message through the portal, you're going to receive an immediate notification in your email. So you will know that you've just received a message. That's going to be coming right to you. It will also automatically, of course, show up in your ConstructionOnline account or portal as well. One really cool thing that happens here with the messages is that when you send the client a message, it does go to their email as well. So they can reply through the portal. They can also just hit the reply button on that email that they get, type in their response. Everything is going to be logged and posted here, so it's super visible, but they can reply to those messages outside of ClientLink. Now, if we go back to our overview, the other thing our client is going to be able to see is that, we do have a change order that looks like it's going to be due on Monday. They can see that there's one change order and multiple selections here that they do need to attend to or make sure that they're going ahead and taking a look at. So let's see what that looks like from the client side here. So let's do some selections first. Now in this case, we have given them until June 1st. So that's going to show up on their main calendar, but not on their snapshot calendar in the beginning. We're not quite close enough to our due date, but they can come in and see all of the selections that we've set up. They have this wonderful chart here as well that shows them, exactly what selections are needed, what their allowance or budget amount is, and then what's the status. And as they begin making those approvals, they'll be able to have some visibility really quickly on, what things are maybe over budget and what things are under budget. So let's say that Polly does want to get a jump start and go ahead and approve maybe a dishwasher here. So what happens from the client perspective is they'll click this approve. They'll see a summary and confirmation. Let's make sure this is what we want to do here. And then when they click that approve button again, they're going to be prompted to sign. So you'll and that's it. Their approval is now confirmed. You'll receive an email immediately when that happens. Their page updates, so they can already see here that they did go a little bit over budget on that dishwasher, not by a lot, but it's great for them to have that visibility. And they'll be able to see, okay, how many are pending now? We have 10 more to go. So it's just a great way for them to not only be able to make those approvals, but also, see exactly what they're doing. One thing on the selection front that you can do is allow your clients to add possible choices. So in some cases, you want to go ahead and give the clients an option to choose between these 5 things, or package A or package B, and they just make the choice and that's it. On some things, especially some of those really custom projects, you might want to give them a budget and then allow them to upload some options for you to choose from. That would give them the ability to come in and add some things to the portal. ClientLink makes it really fun to do that with our selection quick pick tool, which allows them to basically go shopping online and pull information from any website and drop it in here. Now, it doesn't automatically confirm the selection because we do still want you, as the builder, to be able to look at that and verify that it's a valid choice. And you'll notice it's just something that is installed into the browser. So Jordan just dragged that button right up into the toolbar of the browser here. And now our client can go online, and maybe if they want to look for, a different refrigerator options, then, they can upload some cool ideas for us.
Now, of course, whenever clients are adding in their own selections, chances are they probably will miss important things like how much it costs, if there's any delivery costs. Really, just in terms of pricing in general, you probably shouldn't trust the pricing that a client is going to give to you, given that they're probably just going to land on the most expensive page, period. That's how the internet really is designed in some cases to work. That being said, again, like Holly was saying, when you actually have a client add a choice from within, from using the actual quick pick tool here, the choice doesn't automatically approve. It simply gives you, the builder, the option to review and actually, approve and say, yes, this will work, or well, maybe we should have a discussion about this, just to make sure. I've worked with a few clients who have had to do maybe different revisions to make sure to the plans to make sure whatever the client selected lands in the right place. And of course, if you want a little more control over what clients are adding as well, you really could just encourage them to work through you to add selection choices, just to make sure you've got a standard approach to not only the base cost, but also the markup applied for the different choices as well. But there's a few options, right? And it is a lot of fun, I guess, for some people to really go through and just load up the platform with a bunch of different selection choices. But it's kind of a double-edged sword if you think about it. One of the challenges that clients really face is making sure the selections are submitted on time. And adding too many choices to the mix can make that a bit tough. But really, the tools are here to facilitate a great communication experience between yourself and your clients, And we think the selection tools that we've built not only does a really good job of showing them what all they have available, but also how it's going to impact the budget, because that's a question that comes up quite often. I think it's easy sometimes to get lost in the numbers, but I think that this summary view and the reports they can generate do a really great job of just pulling that information together for them very quickly.
Yeah, that's right. From this page, the client can not only see how they're doing on the budget, but they can generate that selections book, which is going to give them a printout of all the selections that they have approved to date. Now, the change order process is similar to that in that they can see what needs their attention, review any information that you've loaded in for them, and then make the approval. Just like with the selections, they are going to be prompted to go ahead and enter a signature. And we actually are working on some really wonderful enhancements that will allow you to see these signatures without even having to print a report. So when currently, when you print up the signatures your clients do are going to show up on your reports. And we're actually adding those right to these cards here so that you'll be able to see immediately who signed off on it. In addition to this log that lets us know who approved it, what was the date, what was the time, when did this happen, and of course you're receiving that notification as well. So a lot of wonderful documentation. Here they also have that budget visibility so that they can see, again, where did we start? How many total change orders have I accepted and added? Not only how much money, but how much work. How much time have I added to the timeline of this project in approved change orders, and to be able to see how much that they still have outstanding in potential approvals. So, tons of great visibility on that budget for them. Now, if they want to look at just some general updates, really, I think Jordan, what I see used most frequently for that is photos. There's all sorts of tools that we could use, but the photo stream here is really what is providing them such a great view. So if we look at today, I can see that 58 photos were added to my progress photo timeline. I can see, looks like 12 were added earlier. So you've got, a really cool visual reference to see the progress of the job, start to finish, that the client can reference here.
Yeah, what's really great about PhotoStream is that it does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of organizing these in time for you as well. In the past, when I've worked with clients, what they'll do is they'll set up a folder for, maybe a top-level folder for job site photos, right? And then they'll set up a secondary layer for photos week of the 10th. And then they'll set up another folder structure for next week, the week of the 17th. And they'll have to continually recreate folder after folder or album after album just to make sure that the photos that they're uploading are really tracked in some sort of time frame that makes sense to clients or for review later on. Well, PhotoStream really does a great job, a lot of heavy lifting in terms of detailing that out for you. We didn't actually go through and set up folders for today and for the 12th and the 11th. PhotoStream is really just checking to see when photos were uploaded and then putting together a really, really nice flow through for our clients to see without much effort from our side at all. And these are some really great photos, options as well. If clients want to really drill in and just start kind of looking through, like, oh wow, look how far they've come along in the past 3 weeks. This is some great stuff. They can do that pretty simply. We think that it's a great system, and it really has come a long way from client feedback, really our client feedback on what their clients are looking for. But of course, the same information can be accessed from project files as well, which is fairly straightforward. From the client's perspective, they have access to the files and folders that we've given them access to so far. Accessing the files and folders here is much like accessing files and folders on their computers. So if they're remotely familiar with doing something like that, they should be able to jump right into the different pieces throughout the platform. And this really can cut down on a lot of the time that your team or administrators would spend just simply replying to a request from a client like, hey, can we see photos from the job site? Or, hey, can you send me over the documents again? I wanted to review something, or I needed to take a look at something. Mm-hmm. Well, you can just point them right back to the portal where they can find this information really quickly and easily without you having to dig through the archives of their files and folders just to send them one document because they asked and you typically jump for it.
Yeah. Well, they can access it really anytime. They can, of course, download the folder, if they want to save a copy, and they can upload items for you. So if if they have something that they want to share, this really serves as that central repository. If they needed to upload some documentation for you, then this is where they would do it. They're just going to come in and do a new upload, or they can just drag and drop right onto this page and it's immediately going to be uploaded for you right into their folder. You'll receive that notification. So again, it's really closing the gap on that communication. Now, speaking of communication, there are a couple of things that aren't really tied necessarily to just one feature, but that I really love about the way ClientLink is set up. One is that you always have a little set of options over here on the left. In this case, I'm doing a number of projects for this client, and that is something unique about our system, is that if you do have repeat clients, they can see if maybe you're working with an investor and you're doing 3 projects for them, they'll be able to see all 3 just by going to one portal. If you're only doing one, of course, that's the only one that shows up, but they always have this Contact Project Creator button available to them, which is going to allow them to send a message directly to you anytime, kind of no matter what they're looking at here, they can always send out a quick message. So it's really a great way for them to be able to communicate. Their team area looks a little bit different as well, because that's going to help them be able to see who all is part of the project team and some contact information for them. So a lot of great options for the clients in terms of just communication, even outside of the project messages that you could send, or maybe other things that might require their approval. Now, here's a great example of what that calendar view looks like for the clients. And in this case, we are, allowing them to see the entire schedule. So they're going to get a little bit more. If we head over into the month of June, you'll notice that milestone for our selection due dates is going to show up. So they'll be able to see all of those due dates side by side with that milestone marker. Now, it looks like we are running out of time, Jordan. What other advice would you offer about using ClientLink, or things that you've seen to help people be really successful here with their clients? And tell me about some of the results in terms of client satisfaction that you've been able to experience.
Absolutely. So in terms of advice, nobody really likes to use something if it's halfway done or halfway fleshed out. So usually when I recommend really pushing for client engagement in the client portals, it has to be worthwhile for them to use it, for them to consider using it, right? If they log in and they see nothing on the overview page and it's kind of like, oh, well, we maybe are going to upload some files at some point, it's not really an encouragement for them to take a look, right? And yes, it does take a little bit of extra setup at first for you to really configure and upload a few pieces and share a few items, but really the dividends that pay off are, clients are more likely to be engaged in terms of actually submitting their selection choices on time and actually approving change orders on time, or maybe earlier than the final due date, just because it's easily accessible for them to get to. In addition, the system is going to send reminders out based on due dates for things like selections and change orders on your behalf for you, so that it doesn't really require you to set up much beyond that. So the first and really main piece of advice I would give is make the portal worthwhile for clients to use, and they will come and use it. If you don't put in that little bit of effort to make it worthwhile for them, they're not going to use it, and you're going to continually scratch your head and wonder, well, why aren't they approving the change orders in the portal, or well, why aren't they taking a look at the selections that I got around to setting up? Really, it starts at the first impression, and I think that's going to carry through. And once you really do hit that point, you'll start to see faster turnaround times for selection approvals, for change order approvals. We've seen that clients are much more communicative, especially when it comes to using things like the ClientLink app, just because they can access it on the go if they're not really doing much, if anything at all, especially right now if they're in a state that is still locked down, or in a part of the world that is still locked down somewhat. It's a really great way for them to stay in touch with you and communicate about their project and what the next steps for that are going to look like.
It is. I think the other piece of advice that I would add to that is, make sure that when you think about the options that you have turned on, that you are, setting yourself up to be able to take Jordan's advice. So we do want the clients to come in and see things that are fleshed out. So maybe don't keep things turned on that you don't plan to use, or that you hope that maybe one day in a year you'll get around to letting the clients, add things to your to-do list. But for right now, you're not comfortable with it. Just don't turn that feature on, because, if we really want them to be able to see, just what's relevant to them. So I would say take advantage of those customization options as well. Now, before we wrap up today, it looks like that our colleague Sydney has done, as always, an outstanding job of answering all of your many questions today and flagging as many of those for us as she can. I see that quite a few of you did request that we send over the ClientLink Getting Started guide. I believe that we distributed that during the webinar, but we'll also be sure to send that out in an email form after the webinar as well. A couple of quick questions that are just kind of coming in that it is good to take a look at. Someone wants to know the project status that we mentioned at the beginning. Where is that located? So that's going to be located in the Edit Project Details option under that main drop-down menu. So if you choose that, it will be the last option there, and you will be able to adjust that project status to pending or live. We also have someone asking if a log can be generated automatically of some of the items that were added in, things like change orders, submittals. And they absolutely can. So your submittals and your RFIs, you can export those out in a log form, either in like a PDF report or in an Excel sheet. So we've got some great options there. For your change orders, same thing. And you can also, when you're generating those change order reports, choose to do it broken down maybe by things like change order reason or change order type. If you needed to get even more, kind of needed to do some analysis there, so you can do a change order overview, or you can come in and do a summary by status or type or reason. And you can choose there to include all reasons or just one specifically, but it'll give you a really good breakdown of what's happening with your change orders when you run these reports. So you can definitely export some great logs and reports there. I think that's all we have time for today. Jordan, can you talk us through what we have coming up in our workshop series?
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to our next workshop. We're going to be talking about how accurate documentation can help you reduce your legal risk and your risk exposure. I've had the fortune recently, Holly, of working with someone who actually works as an expert witness in court cases when it comes to construction claims and other things that might come up in the process of doing business in the industry. And so it's been fun to talk with them about some things that they've seen. But of course, we have a wealth of knowledge and history. We've heard of a lot of stories from our clients, and we're excited to share best practices and lessons learned across the industry of how our clients have used our platforms and our tools to really protect their companies against legal exposures. It's pretty exciting.
It is. I think it's going to be a great session. We do have some new things that we'll be introducing to Construction Online in the coming weeks, and we'll have some really informative workshops set up to walk you through some of the new things that we're adding, as well as some additional UDA Academy classes on learning the basics. So we hope that you will, check back frequently here for our schedule of events. Make sure that you're checking your email. I try to keep everyone updated on classes that we're offering. And until next week, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you again so much, everyone, for joining us.